Does that every time, it seems now. Resets the device to some thing because it refreshes. Anyway, right, we're back. Yes, it's a Monday. It's a Monday, just gone 2 minutes past 7 now. Right, let's talk about some song stuff. First, I'm just going to dive straight in. I don't know who's watching or anything. Say hello. I'm going to dive straight in with my kind of like apologies. Hello, Datalink. Also, hello, Paul. My apologies first and foremost for not being around. Combination of things being I've had time with my family, etc. on Mondays for a few weeks now, and busy with work stuff as well. Very, very busy with work. So that's part of it. And part of it also is I covered I did something with Grant the other day. And hello, War Champion. I did something with Grant the other day, and I was able to kind of like air my thoughts a lot more with Grant, even if it's just not captured for the what we were doing. But yeah, it just gave me a chance to kind of clear my head a little bit with a few things. And ultimately, it's a struggle to do these every week at the moment with my own frustrations, and I know some people have seen that in some of the content. And yeah, like I love the game, right? I still do love the game, but some aspects when I talk about it just makes me very annoyed, and a lot of it isn't warranted. You know, some of it's just me being negative because I'm used to being negative. And that isn't healthy. So yeah, that's another part of the reason why. Data says, have they solved the issue with the UK Brexiting the Europe OP program? Yeah, it was a mistake. Data. Germany and the UK. I thought I'd seen Germany on the list originally, but apparently Germany and the UK were both missing from the original list, the sign up, and that's since been rectified. So the OP program, which we'll talk about in a minute, is indeed available in the UK. I'll talk about that in a second because that's a little bit of news that we're going to discuss today anyway. But yeah, so hopefully you can bear with me while I'm just going to go through this stuff. And hopefully the content will be a little bit more positive when there is it. So, you know, it's better to have slightly less and make it more positive than it is to have more and for it to be kind of like dominated by negativity, hopefully. And I know that that's weird for stats viewers who've been here for a long time. We've been negative quite often. But yeah, hopefully you all understand. So, a few things to cover, and I'm just going to dive straight in with the first one being the European OP program. Not the only thing. New unit shown as well, which we'll go through today. It's been discussed for the last a few days, I think, because over maybe Friday it was released. I can't remember now. So we can have a look at the stats for that and everything, and talk about why that unit's going to be good, etc. And then, you know, we'll see where the discussion takes us. Yeah. All right then. First and foremost, the latest news we have of OP is as of June the 3rd, so today, and they've got some news for European players, European tournament organisers, European individuals. So, basically, CMON has partnered with War Factory to support organised play in Europe. Now, originally, when I immediately jumped onto the sign-up form to see if I could sign up, what the kind of requirements are, and the form's very basic. I have a few criticisms of the form, but I know that I'm trying to be more positive. Mostly that it's got CMON Asia OP written all over it, and it refers to Asia a load of times in the actual text, but it's for European players, and the country drop-down list is a bunch of European countries, so it's all fine. Hi, Crones. And yeah, so the UK wasn't listed originally, which is where Data had asked me the question. The UK wasn't listed. As it turns out, Germany also wasn't listed. Now, Germany, I wouldn't know, but obviously the UK, when I saw it wasn't listed originally, I was like, crap. Is this an intended miss because of Brexit, supply issues, getting content to the UK? Or is this just an unintended miss? So I dropped them an email. I also saw that Brick had seen my image, and it turns out that Brick had got in contact with the relevant individuals within CMON, and yeah, the issue was fixed on the form. So the UK was there. It was just an oversight. Thank you. First of all, super rapid response. Got Germany and UK added to the form within, I want to say, about half an hour of the form going up. You know, we could sit here and say they shouldn't have missed it, which they kind of probably shouldn't have missed it in the first place. But at the end of the day, like, they've rectified it as soon as someone's alerted them to the problem. So, like, that's fine. Like, that is what you'd expect, and it's just an oversight. We move on. It's not like the War Council issues, right, where an issue is raised on War Council, and we're talking like months before it gets fixed. In some cases. So yeah, there's big improvement there. What does this actually mean? What does the OP announcement actually mean? Well, basically, from what we can tell, I will read through this and then I'll explain what the form looks like and what's included in the form. It's very simple, so that's relatively easy. So, first and foremost, anytime it says CMON Asia Organised Play, like here, I'm pretty sure it's meant to be European, but obviously this is all started up with Europe Asia. The email address used is Asia _organised play, I think. If you follow through this website here, you can't see it on your screen, but it literally says mail to Asia _organised play at cmon.com. So the whole thing's set up with Organised Play Asia, and I think whoever's put together this, the form, the whole thing, they have not proofread to amend all versions of Asia to Europe. It's just a little thing, but don't be confused, because I know that some individuals will find that kind of like a bit confusing. Don't be confused. It just means Europe. So, who can register? Active club or store owners and event or tournament organisers. So this is going out there to all clubs. So, for example, myself, Carlo, Dan, we have a club. We do not play in a store. We are not affiliated with a store. We have nothing to do with stores. We have a club, so we can register our club, which has already been done. An event and tournament organizer can also register, so we could register the club. Carlo could also register himself as a tournament organizer. We could have I'm trying to think, like the Chelmsford Bunker guys could register as a club, but Grant and Yecats could obviously register as a tournament organizer. That kind of thing. The NGT guys, you've got DMG as a club. You could even have Gaming Figures as the store, although they've not really playing there anymore. And then you could have Alan and Aaron as event organisers. So that's just worth something in mind. Like, there are multiple ways you can sign up to this. It's all the same form anyway, but it's very open to anyone looking to organise events, or the stalls or clubs. So once that's sorted, apparently you get an email for verification within 14 days, which is quite a while. This tells me that it's being manually done, which there are registration systems like this available that do it automatically. So for me, it clearly shows that this is something that the organised play team has just decided to do without necessarily the infrastructure behind at CMON. And I'm not talking about War Factory, but the CMON infrastructure is not really there to support it. So it's being done manually, and this is going to go through to OP individuals who are going to assess the form and go, cool, yeah, we've got this one. They'll probably log the details they have in some kind of database, which is what they'll be doing anyway. And then that will go with the verification process onto the next step, and the details will be shared with War Factory, which is the people they're teamed up with. Once that's sorted, I'm guessing that you can then... I don't know if they'll have a client. They do have an existing client. They had an existing client under Organized Play. So, oh, there's my email address. Whoops. This is the old client, right? This exists on their website. I don't have any registered stores. I can't actually add a store because it doesn't work properly. In fact, I don't know if it actually does anymore. No. I'll have to check. I'll check to make sure if it properly registers these. And yeah, basically, this is a platform that you can do things through. It seems to not use this platform, right? Which is weird because this is a platform on the website to support Organized Play. It doesn't seem to indicate that you use this platform. However, we will see. And you have an account with them, and War Factory, I guess, will be in contact regarding some form of platform to purchase or request Organized Play items and products. There's two things there, purchase or request. So purchase, you can clearly buy products as tournament support. If anyone's wondering what kind of thing we mean there, the game night kits, which were always, they were a product that was sold and stores could purchase them. And game night kits, as on the form, are one of the things that it says it's going to support with. So this will mean that War Factory effectively are distributing game night kits to European customers. At least, I don't know when the game night kits are out. There's no information about that, but if you can think of that kind of thing. So that's the purchasing. The request, I don't know what falls under the request. It might be that you can request a certain amount of product. I doubt it, though. I think that... I actually think CMON have been giving out probably too much free product. And I know that it's at cost actually very low for them. But it's a very interesting kind of... I don't know how they'll do that. So it'll be interesting kind of like where the split between purchasing or requesting supports or items will be. And then you have a year of validation. If there's no activity, the account gets terminated and you need to re-register, which is absolutely reasonable. Absolutely reasonable. So, all shipping rates will be quoted separately by War Factory. Yeah, fine. So, paying for shipping, which kind of again makes sense. I wouldn't expect them to ship for free, which they have kind of been doing. So, to ensure a smooth transition, we begin processing registration and support for Organized Play in Europe first. Currently asking communities in North America for patience understanding. So, they don't have a solution currently for North America. They might be using War Factory for North America, but War Factory doesn't currently ship to NA. So they might be using a different distribution system. What is interesting here, of course, is they are not using Asmodee. They are looking to not have Organized Play run through Asmodee, and that's good on about 1 billion different levels. I can't express how positive that is. Just don't use Asmodee. I don't know if this is a wider thing of like, is CMON going to move away from using Asmodee as a distribution network entirely? I doubt it. I think that would be as a massive breach of contract for a start, and exclusivity, etc., etc. But I don't know the ins and outs. They might be looking at other options. It might just be OP. You never know what's covered in contracts or not. But I think it's a great move, to be honest. Like, not using Asmodee is a positive thing. In the UK, we've had multiple run-ins with Asmodee and kind of communication between Asmodee and CMON as well. So, you know, when you've got 3 individuals, one person who's doing it as a volunteer and 2 people who are doing it as their job, and the volunteer seems to be the one who understands the communication links between the other 2 the most, that's pretty bad. And that's multiple TO experiences within the UK and across the pond in Europe. So, yeah, I think it would be fair to say that this system is probably going to be a lot better. Like, a lot better. Because War Factory actually do communicate. And they seem to do it pretty well. So that is the big one. This is the big news. Obviously, NA is still suffering. I think it's a bit of a shame they didn't have a solution for NA at this time. Like a lot of these things, I think they announce when they have a win. This is one thing that CMON does, is CMON tend to announce something when they have a win. And if they don't have a win, they simply don't talk about it. I would much rather they did the whole thing regularly, win or no win, just communicate. But radio silence until you've got good news is a very common strategy of some businesses and some bigger businesses, because then it means that no news is good news, and then good news is the news you get. So it is. A lot of people believe that this works out as a more positive thing in the long run. I do not subscribe to that idea. I don't think that's good business practice myself, but that is actually a big school of business, and a lot of people do that. So I can't blame them for following that method. Yeah, that's it. Europe, we've got some form of OP coming down the line. I don't expect this to be up and running now. I mean, it is technically up and running now, but I don't expect it to be working, which is part of the why I immediately, and I know Grant as well, signed up. Because if we sign up now, it's going to be 14 working days from now, so 3 weeks. So we're talking mid to late June before I would expect, before they hit that 14-day deadline, which they now have. And that's before I would expect any, forward movement. So realistically, this is only going to affect probably events if you're lucky at the end of June, but realistically, this is July onwards events. We'll see what happens there. We'll see how kind of like that plays through, and if I get any updates, obviously I'll share with you what that looks like, what the kind of what the, if any, relationship with War Factory looks like, and kind of what as a TO you have availability with. Because I think once this is set up and you have some options as a TO going forward, even if there is a paid cost to it, I think communicating that with the public and being very open and honest with that will be a brilliant idea. And then it will show people what to expect as a TO from this organized play system, which, I'm more like moving to review type stuff. I'm not saying I will do it, but I probably will do it, moving to a point of like reviewing the OP system from a consumer point of view. So hopefully that'll be really useful for any new TOs in the area as well. Let's have a look. CMON certainly doesn't have the infrastructure to support OP in North America, which is sad considering it's a North American company. Yeah, I mean, it's worth remembering, Data, that they're basically based in Singapore and Thailand. So, do a lot of their work over in Thailand, and the company basically runs out of Thailand. One of the actual things you see when we jump to the form, I'm not going to dox myself any further. I've already doxed myself enough as it is here. In here, you'll notice that it literally says the data controller for GDPR regulation is in Singapore and is Asia. There's some legal stuff here around how they share data, rights, etc., etc. The normal things you would normally get, which I'm glad that they've got in there. But it's all run through CMON Asia still, not any form of other routes here. And you can see here the commitment that they have within what it says. I'll read this to you, and I'll zoom in a little bit forward so you can see this is their achieve and support, what they're looking to do. These are actually fairly generic statements that are related to the game. It's good that they've got them on there. I read through them and was like, oh, cool, great. There's nothing of any real, solid importance in there hugely. This is the bit that matters here. This is the following terms. So promos are strictly meant for event usage and not meant for resale. Yep, completely reasonable. They can be purchased from the registered distributor. Again, proofreading. They can be purchased. They can be purchased from the registered distributor that is assigned to the applicant's store and club. So I'm guessing this is the distributor assigned to the store and club is again from Asia, whereas here what we're saying is the distributor that is assigned to those things is War Factory. So again, you can see how it's not been properly proofread. But essentially, registered distributor is going to be War Factory from my understanding, all cases. Marketing support covered under this program includes, but are not limited to, so it's open-ended, but it should include game night kits, alt sculpt promos, and playmats. Game night kits, we all want them back. I know that they're the Spearwives, the Conscripts, they have been going and doing the rounds forever. But actually, we just want them back because what they had in the plastic rulers and things like that, they were, at least 2 years ago, always a popular kind of thing to just give out at events. So game night kits making a comeback is something that we really want as a community, and we've been saying it for ages. Where is Game Night 3, which they announced, which had the Vargo alt sculpt in? That would have been amazing. Alas, it never came. Alt sculpts, yeah, people love alt sculpts. There's nothing wrong with good alt sculpt. We love alt sculpt units and things like that. It's always cool to get something a bit different. You know, it's one model usually that you get given to you as an entry prize or whatever. Alt sculpts are cool. They're not the end of the world. They're not like a be all and end all. They're not massive drivers, but a few alt sculpts goes down well. And promos, yeah, promos. People love the promo stuff. The Vargo. I've got the alt Stannis. I gave the Renly away. The extra Renly that I had, and then the High Sentinel as well. These kinds of things are people like this stuff. So having that as part of that support program is a really positive thing. These are the things we want. They've also got playmats in there. Now, playmats, if it's 4x4 playmats included within the program, things like the Vase Dothrak things that they did for US National Super Regional, not Nationals, US Super Regionals last year. That would be really interesting. They never made it across to anywhere else in the world apart from, I think Asia had them. But they never made it to Europe in any big way apart from individuals buying them secondhand. So those coming across and actually making a bit of a splash, I'm not suggesting it will be the Vase Dothrak ones, but potentially other ones in the future as well. Bit of an awkward one because in the Europe, we actually have quite a lot of individuals now, hits and crits. The ones I have from Tabletop Warden, the ones from songwestandfire.fr. People are creating their custom game mats and play mats and the sideboards. People are doing that already. So CMON, ironically, are moving into, I won't say it's super crowded, but they're already moving into quite a crowded market in that space in Europe with the playmats. You know, you could buy 4x4 playmats and all the various different things from all these different creators with the different styles with objective markers on. So if they're not doing anything major to compete with that and the prices are kind of similar, I don't imagine they'll go down that well in terms of purchasing. But I still think it's a good option they're bringing them across. You know, that I'm not criticizing them for doing it. It's just that we've not had it for so long. I think a lot of people just started doing it anyway. It's certainly in Europe. I've not seen as many people create these and produce these in the US. I know one of them was producing them, but I think he's since stopped. Yeah, where's my alt sculpt Martell Spearman Captain? Yeah, exactly. Which was, you know, leaked, given away, among other things. They also said any breaches of the terms above would result in immediate termination of the agreement. No further support will be provided. Yeah, absolutely fine. Completely reasonable. Is exactly what you'd expect from any agreement. So yeah, that's the form. If anyone's got any questions around, there's a bunch of information in there, like your name, your email address for contact reasons, etc., etc. But there you go. Organised Play Europe looks like it's getting some positive news. Like all these things, we wait to see what happens. It's okay to say, oh, we've got some news to share with you, and it's great. And everyone goes, woo, yeah, woo, woo. And then 6 months later, nothing's happened. And we go, well, that announcement that you made that made us hyped, you've lost any trust. You know, we don't want that. No one wants that. Simon doesn't want that. We don't want that. No one wants that. Let's not let that happen. Let's have positive progression. Let's have War Factory starting to get some tournament organised support out there in July. You know, if they can hit any of these events in July and get some event stuff out there in July because of either purchases or requests or whatever it might be, then that would be a win. You know, that would be a real positive win, and I think that will that will go down well for the community, go down well certainly for me, go well down well for the various different places that get the support. So yeah, I'm not excited right now because I need to see the end result kind of thing, and I've been, let's say, I've been here for a long time now, right? You know, this is episode 174. This has been over 3 years of doing these episodes, 3.5 years, I think, and I've been burnt before, so I don't get excited in the same way anymore. That being said, if this gets off the ground and starts working, I think I would be excited, because I think it would finally mark a real, like, just huge forward step in the organized play scene. And I think that's a real good thing. So let's hope that NA gets something similar to match this within the next few months. You know, if it takes an extra month or two to figure out US or NA, then sure. Let's hope that pushes forward to being only 1 or 2 months. Let's not wait another 6 months before NA gets anything. Yeah. I just saw your question there, War Champion. Can you post the link that's in chat? Sorry, I just got carried away by reading that. I'll read through things. Response time. Agreed. Asmodee is horrible. Asmodee is an incredibly risky position because their parent company used them as a debt dumping ground. They could spin them off with all the debt. Yeah, Howard. That is probably. I mean, it sounds really bad. I know we kind of briefly touched on it, I think, in a previous episode. Can't remember if we did. But actually, the thing is here is that if it's company debt in the way that it is, and it is for a lot of money, by the way, what they'll do is they'll probably kind of like liquidate some assets. They'll move some money around, and then they'll take out some more kind of business loans, etc., get some finance backing in. So what will end up happening is, from a consumer's perspective, we might not see any changes in the business from a consumer perspective. And they'll just shuffle around how the debt is managed, and like they'll take out effectively new debt that has a much longer like fruition time or whatever. That's very common in the business sector, in terms of like how you shuffle finances and make things work. So it's not really the end of the world, like, really, but at the same time, it isn't. I agree, it isn't like amazing, you know. Something to be aware of, but I don't think it will ever. I don't think it will come to a bad situation where, you know, Simon or any of the other businesses have to suddenly liquidate hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of assets and basically disappear. I doubt that happens. Response time to community organisers is key. My average time between communication with Simon is, no hyperbole, 6 months to get a reply back. It's pretty maddening. Yeah, data, agreed. That's the big thing, is that you can't have that kind of communication level. If you just check in with the song community every 6 months, it doesn't work. Any community, right? That's not really how the communication should work. It's one of the criticisms that we've had of the designers in the past, is not that the designers were saying bad or problematic things or saying the wrong things. That's not actually the criticisms that were necessarily, you know, that important. The criticism was, you've literally, you know, Simon or you have not said anything about the next design direction or the next part of the game for like 6 months, and all you ever seem to do is announce product that had been previously revealed or spoiled by not you. So yeah, those criticisms around communication times, I think, are very valid. And when it comes to you're directly emailing the business and not getting a response back for 6 months, yeah, come on, that needs to be better. Anyway, I wouldn't say I'm trying not to be negative. I'll move past that one. I hope they'll bring foiled decks, back foiled decks, or foiled versions of any card. Yeah, let's be wary of the foiled deck approach. Those of you who weren't around for the foiled deck approach, they did a whole thing where they announced awesome foil decks available for all factions in the game at the time, and everyone was like, yes! They ordered them. They took a long time to arrive. And because of the long wait time to arrive, and CMON dropped the ball on this one a little bit. They announced a new version where the decks would be changing, the first time where a significant portion of decks changed, by the way. At the back end of 1.6, this is going into 2021. And all these foil decks that everyone had were no longer actually usable. I have mine in my card collector. And yeah, they were never usable for the most up-to-date version of the game, with people receiving them after the 2021 update had been announced, and I think even come out in some cases. So that they dropped the ball on that one freaking hard. And as a result, a lot of people lost trust with CMON and special products there. But yes, if they can nail that right with product, with organizing themselves around how that comes out, I think that wouldn't be a thing that people rule out completely. John says, anyone want to buy my Targ foil deck? Exactly. It was a farce, if you think about it. And they tried to defend themselves, saying like, oh, but you bought these things and you knew they could go out of date, and it was like, yeah, but it's not quite the same. You don't sell them under the pretense that you know it's gonna change in like 2 weeks or by the time they get delivered. So yeah. War Champion posted a link. Yeah, agree, Mick, you need some actual follow through from CMON. Yeah, exactly. You need some follow through on CMON's behalf. So that's organized play. I'm actually finally going to move on. That's first piece of news. The next piece of news is, and this is pretty huge, because this is the first time since some of the COVID live streams that we had, where they had they had a big image that they posted up, and the mountain on horse was on that image with a few other things. They also announced dragons in that stream, if I remember rightly, as well. Mentioned dragons. This was the first time since then. I genuinely think this is the first time since COVID. So I want to say 3 years ago, 2 years ago maybe. I'm being generous, 2.5 maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it's the first time since then that CMON have directly announced and revealed for the first time a new unit in the Crownland Scouts for Baratheons. This is good on 2 levels. 1, Baratheon unit. Hey, people love content, right? That's why it's good. Good for reason 2. This is genuinely, I think, the first time for a long time that we have seen CMON actively spoil a few weeks ago with some images saying, oh, look what's coming over the hill, basically. And then successfully reveal a product, the general populace, first time, non-CMON spoiler free. And that, right there, is a very good step in the right direction. And I know people perhaps don't realise how important this is, but one of the criticisms I've had in the past of CMON is they didn't control their sales activity properly and their marketing activity properly. Because most of the time, the things they were announcing, the community had already known about for 2 or 3 months before they announced it. And you've only got to look back at some of the episodes here. Pick an episode, I don't know, 100, maybe not 100, maybe 98, I don't know. But pick an episode, and I bet you we're talking about a spoiled unit CMON hadn't even announced, right? That is a huge step forward, because it means CMON is having better control of that product outlay. That is a huge control element that's now falling onto CMON, that allows them to control their marketing. It allows them to see what spoilers are coming out. I hope this continues. I am a big fan of CMON being in control of this stuff, because it means they can actually control it and they can do proper marketing and they can do a good job, in theory. It's very hard for me to sit here and say they're doing a good job when I see that, you know, some random store in Spain has got something up and I go, oh, there's a new unit. And then CMON don't say anything or even talk about it. They have in the past, obviously, where something's been spoiled and then they've kind of gone, oh, this thing got spoiled early, here's this information. This is good. I'm a big fan of this. You know, it sounds negative and it sounds like I'm bashing CMON. I'm not. I'm saying that CMON may have actually got their acting gear and potentially sorted out their relationships with some of these stores, with some like Asmodee, etc., where they are now being able to control their own marketing, and that is a CMON thing that I hope they've improved. And if they have, well done, CMON. Good job. Love it. Crownland Scouts. Can we guess what the news is? Yeah. Crownland Scouts. This is how CMON revealed them originally. A 6-point cavalry unit that is factionless, if you will, non-loyalty, faction agnostic. It can be taken Renly or Stannis, or neither side. Very important. Very important. Obviously, within Renly's side, it's kind of competing with Highgarden, Riders of Highgarden, as like a 6-point cav unit. They are not the same cav unit, obviously. They fulfill different roles. But we'll go through and we'll talk about the unit a little bit. Lots of discussion already had on this, of course, on the various Discords. So first and foremost, and I think probably the most important thing, is that you can't see the armor rating. Or at least you can't see it on this picture. They also conveniently blocked the orders. Now, the thing is, as you know, us internet people who have far too much time on our hands to go and investigate this kind of stuff, it was basically worked out, the 2 orders that they had, within, I want to say, like, literally about 15 seconds. Now, the second order, you can see on this image here, this was found out to be swift reposition because it's the only order that has this formatting with da-da-da-da, and then underneath it they move 3 inches or whatever, they perform a 3-inch shift, that exists on a unit. And it fits with the fluff that we were given, which is being able to move things up swiftly or something. So very, very quickly worked out the swift reposition. And then the top one has the formatting for threaten and or mark target as the kind of like layout there. And as a result, it could be threaten, but it'd be the first time that threaten's seen on a unit. We have seen mark target on units, Cranman trackers, Ranger trackers. So it's not unreasonable to suggest that mark target is the more likely of the 2, although threaten would of course be somewhat unique in being the first unit with threaten. It was actually revealed later on that that's exactly the 2 orders they had: mark target and tactical reposition. You'll notice this image still covers the armor value. You'll notice the stag's helmet covers the armor value on this image. It covers the armor value on this image. The one thing we don't know, although it is assumed at this point, that the cavalry rule at the bottom is of course 3 wounds, and then later on we see this image here which confirms 3 wounds. It confirms the armor value of 4+ as well. So as it currently stands, I'll go back to this image here. I think we'll go back to this one. This is a movement 5 cavalry unit coming in at 6 points, 7-4 profile on 4+, 4+, 6+ defensively, with swift repo, with mark target, and the cavalry innate. So that's it. That's the unit. That's 6 points of cavalry. Is it any good? Now, I was disappointed. I am disappointed with this, and actually comes back to being the kind of like the sleuth. What orders do they have when we didn't know, right? And I know that we want good balance, and I'm a big fan of good balance. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say this, but one of the few things that is kind of like been wearing me down a little bit is there's a little bit of a lack, perhaps, of adventurous design at the moment. That's not to say it's bad design. It isn't bad design. It's just not very adventurous. It's not very inventive in a lot of what we see. There is some that is, but a lot of what we see isn't. And again, you see here, set Swift Repo and Mark Target on a cavalry unit. Okay, yeah, Swift Repo exists. Mark Target exists. Cool, put them together. Yeah, it's fine, and we'll get onto that in terms of power level. Is this unit good or not? But from a design perspective, it's like, I've kind of seen all this before. It's nice that Baratheon now got it. They already had, actually, both of these rules. Rightful Heir giving Mark Target, and Justin Massey giving the 3-inch shift. So, like, none of this is completely new. It's just they've never been in this order in a unit. That's fine. It's just, it's not... Like, from a design perspective, we'll talk about balance. We'll talk about what they do, because I think it's a different discussion. From a design perspective, the unit doesn't excite me, because it hasn't got something new for me to think about in terms of game mechanics. I don't have to think about new strategies and new things that the lists can do, because they could already have access to these things and do these things in a roundabout way. It's not a new avenue of playing. I already know how these orders interact with the game. I've already thought about those interactions to some extent within list building, within playing the game on a grander scheme, more than just Baratheon, but other things in the game, right? This brings me on to a direct comparison now at 6 points with Stark Outriders. Stark Outriders coming in at 6 points, at 6 move, not 5, so they got an extra movement stat. A 7/4 attack profile hitting on 4+, a 4+6+ defensive profile. They have now, after the last update, got Swift Reposition on the cavalry. They have the cavalry special rule. They have Ambush and not Mark Target. Now, Ambush is probably worse than Mark Target. In fact, I can pretty much demonstratively say that Ambush is worse than Mark Target. But they are both 6 movement cavalry units. And if you ignore the top order and the movement stat on Crownland, if you actually just cover... In fact, let's do it, right? There you go. I've covered the movement stat and the top order on Crownland Scouts. And this, I could just say from a design perspective, is Stark Outriders. There's actually no difference between this and Stark Outriders if you just cover those things. I know you could say that about a lot of stuff in the game, but like, when you then see it and it's like, well, it's one less move, and then it has a token ability. The difference being is this token ability doesn't require charging in flanks or rears. It's just a long range target. It's a better token ability, but it loses a movement speed for it. And it even fills the same role. Token ability. It's not... Again, I'm not talking about the power level. I'm not talking about should Baratheons be excited. But someone who plays every faction, who plays exciting, interesting stuff, I am not initially that excited about Crownland design. Seen it before. It's cool it's put together in this format. It's cool that I get to use it in Baratheon. But like... Okay, cool. Alright. I can move on to thinking about strategies. But even most of the strategies I don't have to think about that much, because I know the strategies of how it works. So really the only thing I have now to think about is list building. So I'm 5 minutes in, and yeah, I know this isn't true for everybody, but for me, 5 minutes after seeing this, the only thing I have left is list building and thinking about list archetype. How does it fit within list archetype? What does this enable that was otherwise shut behind like a Varys or behind some other various synergies and things. And there is some options which we'll talk about. I am thinking positive, right? And this is me thinking positively. So yeah, let's talk about the good. We'll talk about how good the unit is, but we'll also actually talk about the next thing, which is the sculpts, right? The sculpts are spot on, right? These look cool. I don't really know what to say. They don't top Hedge Knights for me. I still think Hedge Knights are genuinely some of the most beautiful models that they've done. And when I say they've done, I'd go as far as saying Hedge Knights are beautiful models. Ignoring Simon and just what they do, Hedge Knights stand up to the test of being a very good model in general. Brilliant horse sculpts and brilliant riders, and the flexibility to paint them how you want because there's actually no iconography on them is beautiful. They knock the ball out with an absolute home run with Hedge Knights, and like what I see here with the Crownland Scouts is good. They don't top Hedge Knights for me, but I do think they've probably knocked the ball out the boundary here. I think you're talking a home run that maybe's bounced off the very top of the railing or whatever on the edge, so it wasn't a clear straight out, up and out kind of out the park. It was a good home run, just not quite as good as previous home runs we've seen. So yeah, sculpts wise, cannot complain. I just can't. Superb. Love it. Except one thing, and this is something that I really hope is just because of the perspective that we have of these models. But does anybody know what is weird about them? And again, it depends on if we're getting the perspective of the model right. It's a classic Simon move, this. If anyone knows, feel free to drop it in chat. I'll reveal it to you in a few minutes. But yeah, the one on the left seems to have lost his sword. Yeah, he does, which is a bit odd. There's no apparent, it might be on the other side that we can't see, no apparent scabbard. Scabbard? Jesus, scabbard. So he may just not have a sword. I doubt that Simon have just forgotten to give him a sword. That would be weird. This guy also appears not to have a shield. I don't know if his shield is on his back, but why the shield's so small. No one's actually got the genuinely classic Simon thing. They're all holding their shields in their right hands and their swords in their left, except the guy without a shield. He's right-handed, apparently, but all the other knights are left-handed. Which brings you on to the other problem, being that they're either all left-handed except the guy without a shield, or they're all right-handed and the guy without a shield isn't because of perspective. It could be mirrored, right? It could be a mirrored image. So as a result, it's a classic Simon trick of, for some reason, this unit's going to be mostly left-handed. I don't know why Simon do it. It's not the end of the world. It really isn't important, right? But it's like Blackguard. For some reason, Blackguard are just entirely left-handed. No idea why. It's the sculpts they went with. Bizarre choice. Sure. I'd love to talk to Jim and Darksword about why they choose left-handed sculpts so often. It's not a criticism, right? I'm not designing it as a criticism. It's certainly not meant to be negative. I'd just love to know why they choose so many sculpts to be left-handed. And it is a lot of them, right? It's a surprisingly large amount. So yeah, there you go. Crownland Scouts, sculpts, great. The unit itself, is this a good unit? I think so. I think Baratheon have been wanting a 6-cost cavalry unit in Stannis' side quite a lot. I can see this fulfilling a hole that was otherwise not filled. You know, it's from a very basic. Whoops, I need that page up. That was really clever. Back. So let's have a little look in Baratheon. I won't choose a commander, so it keeps it faction as agnostic. But we'll go for. Well, there's not even a faction agnostic 6-point unit now, so I can't even put that in. Oh, there is. Baratheon Halberdiers. Cool. So let's put in a unit of Halbs. Let's put in another unit of Halbs. And ironically, another unit of Halbs. Explain that in a second. Let's stick in four enemies faction agnostic. 4, and 4 will do. So I've given you this layout, right? This is a 4/4/4 NCU board and 3 units at 6. Now I've used Baratheon Halberdiers because that's what's available. This gives you 10 points left, and we can see this as like 10 points of scope, which you can pick how you upgrade the list. But I've gone this for Baratheon because Baratheon typically runs 7s or 8s. They don't run 9s. They basically can't. And they typically deviate towards the lower, so 7/8s, right? So, what am I thinking? Well, initially I'm thinking if we look at faction-specific stuff, yes, Highgarden Pikemen at 5, but your Faithful and your Lightbringers and your Thornwatch at 6, your Riders of Highgarden at 6. In Renly side, if you wanted a 6-point unit, you were looking at these 2 options. In your Stannis side, you were looking at these 2 options. Lightbringers nearly always win out over Faithful, of course. 7, you've got your King's Men versus your Rose Knights. We rarely see the Queen's Men, but faction agnostic Stag Knight at 7 as well, of course. Rose Knights and King's Men are the typical choices in the 7-point bracket. So, what I see now is I see the potential to have, let's say, a Halberdier unit. Let's say this is Thornwatch or Lightbringers, your support piece, be that ranged or not. And this last 6-point is your cavalry unit. You have infantry, you have ranged, and you have cavalry wrapped up in your 30 of 40 points. We have 10 points left to upgrade NCUs. We have 10 points left to add a 4th combat unit. And that could be whatever we want, right? That can be an 8-point unit of Champions of the Stag with 2 points left over to go for something like a Crescent and a 1-point Davos in one of the units. And all of a sudden we've got what is basically a functioning list. Or we upgrade to King's Men over the Halberdiers. We've got King's Men, we've got Lightbringers, we've got Crownland Scouts, we've got all 3 sects. We've then invested 8 points into Champions of the Stag. We've then invested Crescent as well. So you've got a 7 activation list with cavalry, 2 units of cavalry even, with a ranged option, with good NCU package, with a strong infantry unit package. This could be done in Baratheon before. It's not new, but you can skew your list to being more cavalry based rather than having what was essentially a double ranged or a double infantry list in Baratheon. You can now go towards more a double cavalry. You don't even have to invest heavily into Champions of the Stag. You could just keep it at double Crownland if you wanted to, or Crownland Riders of Highgarden if you're talking about Renly. And that again takes you 2 more points. That gives you the cost, Elenas of the world. If you rather than the Crescents, it means we can go down the route of going Mel if we want. Davos Attachment if we're talking Stannis side. Options, right? We've got options within list building. So I think Crownland Scouts open options within list building, and that is good. I do not think they're going to completely revolutionise Baratheon that much. Mark Target's good for Baratheon. Cavalry's good for Baratheon. The 3-inch shift is good for Baratheon. I do think that they are going to be good in Baratheon. I can't see them revolutionising Baratheon to some new powerhouse. Worth noting that as of today's current stats, and these fluctuate massively,
but Baratheon has actually been on a relative high. It's dropped off in the last 50. But Baratheons have been doing well in this patch. I don't think that Baratheons will benefit, and Baratheons will increase in ELO with this unit release. I don't think it's going to completely revolutionize how Baratheons can function. I don't think it's going to completely change list building, but I do think it will have a profound positive impact on list building, and you'll see these styles of lists appear a lot more. So let's. I'll just have a little read through what people have been saying. Christopher says, "I'm guessing someone left-handed makes them." Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Just resculpt the models. Yeah, of course. Roughing says Lance Cav. Oh wait, yeah. Just tuning in. We talking scouts. Yeah, best part of is the list building freedom. Yeah, it is. I really don't think that it's. I personally don't think the freedom this opens up with Baratheon list builders is that big. I think a lot of Baratheon list builders have felt shackled by their own mentality rather than the actual options they have. That being said, it's obviously a good thing. They are on rate at 6 points. You know, they are very comparable with other existing 6-point units of Cav. I think it's fine. The question is, are they better in that 6 slot than other options in at 6? And that's where I might start to struggle. Let's have a look at the power rating and let's have a look at units. It's worth noting here that if we look at Starks, just so you are aware, one of the worst unit in Starks is Stark Outriders. And this is a unit that I would consider as completely playable, perfectly fine 6-point cavalry unit. And it just doesn't stack up in relation to the other 6-point units that get taken or the other options within list building. So Stark Outriders just isn't really winning games. Coming in at is a 40.75 win rate. And it's not even that bad a pick rate, right? And we can talk about are Stark Outriders good in Starks, etc., etc. But like, this style of unit is not setting the world on fire. I don't think Crownland Scouts are going to massively set the world on fire either. That being said, we look at combat units in Baratheon, and Lightbringers set mildly positive at 6. Your other options at 6, technically your Rainbow Guard, your Faithful down at basically nothing. Riders of High Guard and slightly negative. Thornwatch quite heavy negative. It's funny to see Wardens are always the worst unit in Baratheon by ranking. I always find that very funny because I personally don't like Wardens, and it just goes to show defensive units on a 4 move speed getting spammed is not how you win. But do I think this Crownland Scout unit is good? I think they will be good. Do they enable Lightbringers? Yes, they do. They enable Lightbringers quite hugely. I don't think they enable King's Men. I don't, because I think you have other ways of getting those vulnerable tokens out ultimately in those lists. I don't think they massively enable Champions of the Stag, who are more grindy anyway, and they get the free vulnerable in the engaged. Yeah, for me, they are not doing more for most of the units. Lightbringers, they are. Lightbringers who were already considered probably the best 6-point archer unit in the game. Lightbringers are heavily enabled by this. Mark target, superb for archers. Getting that, especially non-sundering archers, where the Lightbringer versus the Lightbringer versus Crossbowman matchup was always about the difference between Vicious and Sundering, and how Vicious was so good against the Crossbowman, but Sundering happened to be pretty good against the Lightbringers as well. Lightbringers do win that trade as it stands. I think the numbers work out positively for the Lightbringers. If it gets within short range, the Sundering and the rerolls really starts to kick in and really helps the Crossbowman out. But yeah, the end result though, so where am I going with all this? Well, really the big result though is that lack of Sundering and having access to Mark Target is big That's a big win for the Lightbringers. They are now pretty much, with the cavalry unit support, going to outtrade that unit every time. And it gets a little bit better, of course, because they can outtrade when they have the token in long range. They can also outtrade by being able to set up in a position where they can shift forward 2 inches for a shot, or setting up a position for a shot with the intention of then shifting 3 back out of respective range, not getting shot back in the process. That is pretty big. And in terms of tempo and controlling the dead space in the board, it now puts Lightbringers up into the position of being one of the best at doing that in slot, which they already were. And as a support piece for the Lightbringer strategy, I think it moves Lightbringers into like a clear first place 6 cost archer unit in those trade-offs. The game isn't just about the trade-offs. Those Crownland Scouts have to be offering you something, and they're offering you a 4+6+ body, assuming that their orders are being used for the Lightbringers to win this trade. They're offering you a 4+6+ body with a cav move, with 5 movement. I mean, this is Start Sworn Sword level territory. It's fine. You know, they got a cav move for 1 point at that rate. So you are getting quite a lot of winning the range duel and then still having, all said and done, a cav move on top of a unit Start Sworn Swords. That is fine, in my opinion. I suspect this unit to do fine, to do pretty well. I don't know if it beats Lightbringers in the overall ranking of the unit, but I would expect it to bring the Lightbringer ranking up as well, potentially. I can also see it being spammed and used in King of the Wall lists. I do not think King of the Wall got a massive help from this. Still think King of the Wall's crap. The sad truth is King of the Wall's just crap because his attachment's just crap. So I don't think he got a massive power boost with this. He's still there. He still has options now, which he didn't really have otherwise. But yeah, I still think he's crap, and I don't expect King of the Wall to do that well. He'll probably have a bit of an uptick, but actually he'll probably downtick by the fact that he'll be played more because people see it as more viable. I might eat my words with that one, but yeah, I can't see King of the Wall doing that well. Wouldn't a unit that single-handedly redefines its faction upon release be horridly overpowered? Yeah. You'd have... Yes. Yes. If it completely redefines a faction, it would be horribly overpowered. But then there are always options within that and ways you can balance that. I don't think this completely redefines Baratheon. I think it very specifically just moves Baratheon into the realms of, if I want cavalry, if we ignore neutrals just for a moment, if I want cavalry, I don't have to take Champions of the Stag. And I think that is a positive thing. Like, Champions of the Stag being the only cavalry available for one half the faction, if you disclude Dragonstone Nobles, of course, is not good. Like, it's not good that your only access to cavalry is 8. And Baratheons are not a non-cavalry faction. Like, they're not a faction that shouldn't have cavalry. Like, arguably Greyjoys and to be honest, Free Folk. You know, these factions are built around the core concept of being infantry without really having access to cavalry. I don't know why we've got Harman's Vanguard, but sure. But like, it's fine for me to say that they have this cavalry unit. It's a bit weird they gave them a 3-inch shift, I have to admit, because I think that it does start to move away from the defining factor of what Baratheons are. You know, we are not seeing those 4 movement units taken at all anymore, in fact. And I think that you're going to see the slow Baratheon, which is what it was for so long. Everything was movement 4 and everything was super slow and everything got into combat too late or was just crap at holding object. I think that's changing in Baratheon. And that is a good thing because it's actually the reason that Baratheons did crap at high level play for so long. Is that you could be a good Baratheon player, a very good Baratheon player, but actually the way that Baratheons played wasn't conducive to objective control and map and presence. So that the moving away from that design idea is not a terrible one. It's just must to be done so in the right way, and then we'll see. I'm not sure. Is it a perfectly great example of the power creep that's occurred in this game? I disagree with everything you've said there about power creep, Evan, and I know this was off the back of a discussion on Discord. I don't think the game has been power crept at all, but that's because I remember 1.6. And for people who don't remember 1.6, I've only played in the last 2.5 years or something like that. Yes, you might see the game as being power crept slightly, but that's because in 2021, exclusively in 2021, there was one powerful thing, one objectively powerful thing, right? Oppressively powerful thing in Night's Watch. Dragons still had it as well. Deadly stuff. Just murdered stuff. What happened in Season 1 is we saw a lot of that power. The power that existed in 2021 was removed. And we saw Mance dominate Season 1. Because power had gone. Mance is powerful. It's worth remembering, Mance basically hasn't changed apart from his AoE 5-up morale. The reason that power got sapped from Mance at the end of Season 1 is because he was so dominant in Season 1. And he was so dominant in Season 1 because the power level of the game was actually low, right? The power level of the game was so low that just having a bunch of crap that didn't die that quickly, it died quickly, but not quickly enough, meant that you could just survive and win. And that's what Season 1 was. Mance wasn't just about killing your opponent, although you happened to do that at the time. But Season 1 Mance was also about you just can't kill me fast enough because nothing that you have hits hard enough. And there was a big thing that no one here remembers. If you weren't a 1.6 player, you won't know this. But in 1.6, as a free folk player, you used to define units into two categories: things you cared about and things you didn't care about. There was one thing you cared about as a kind of ability back then, which was crit blow. Right, crit blow as a printed ability on a unit was something you cared about. Stocksworn Swords had it back then as well. So you cared about that. The other thing you cared about is you looked across to their attack profile and you saw if they rolled 7 or 8 dice as their top rank. If they rolled 7 dice with a +1 panic fail as well, which was D3 +1 back then was the standard. If they rolled 7 dice and you max failed the panic for 4, the maximum wound you could take was 11. There was very few chip damage pieces back then. I know Waldo chip damage existed, but that was mitigatable with free folk. It was good against wolves though. Not joking. If you rolled 7 dice and couldn't one-shot my raiders, didn't care. Like, literally didn't care. And I'm not kidding. That was the way free folk played at the top level of the game, is you don't roll 8 dice, therefore you don't matter. There were some later abilities in things like the Crownland trackers and stuff that D3 wounds when they retreat and stuff like this. It was all Stark stuff nearly that meant that you had to care. But that was it. Like, literally that was it. And that was a problem. Season 1, that was taken to the new heights. Season 1 Mance, you just didn't care about nearly anything because you just weren't going to get killed. That was the game being basically toothless. As toothless as it has been. And we saw that in 2021, where even some of the strongest stuff from aggressively from other factions couldn't kill Night's Watch crossbowmen fast enough. And that's Night's Watch crossbowmen you can't kill. Like, you know, free folk raiders as well. You couldn't kill them fast enough. That was a toothless game. We've seen power creep since 2021 and Season 1 in particular. And I think that has been necessary. I do think Season 1 power creep is necessary. We are still probably nowhere near the power level of 1.6 units. Again, 1.6, a lot of factions running 8, 9, 10 activations as standard, and people kicked the living shit out of each other. Games were controlled by objectives, but actually, games were brutal, right? Not 4 units where you kill like 2 or 3 of your opponent's units and then you win, or you might table them, whatever. People were tabling one another with 10 activation games. And they were doing it in like 4 rounds. Like, the game was about hitting people really goddamn hard, really goddamn quick, and tabling one another, wiping units in one-shots regularly, you know, or chip damage one-shot, chip damage one-shot. That was literally the game. That just isn't true most of the time in 2021, through Season 1, through Season 2. We have seen that more in Season 3 and Season 4, especially with the prominence of Lance Cav. But generally, the power level simply isn't there. That being said, I do understand where you're coming from. Over the last 2.5 years, the power level has increased. The average power level of the average component has improved. And that's because there used to be a low segment of playable objects, if you could talk about competitive viability. And by balancing the game, they have brought typically things up. Some things have been brought down, Champions of the Stag, but typically things have been brought up to where the playable stuff level is. And so over time, the overall power of the game from 2021, which is, if you think of it, the current rule set, has improved. There has been power creep. I don't think that that's that bad. I do not think that that is an issue. I think we probably need to see a little bit, you know, I would argue if we're at a good step at the moment with the power level in the game, in relative terms, you know, is an 8-point unit better than a 7? The answer is yes. Is a 7 better than a 6? Actually, yes, I think they are. Is a 6 better than a 5? I still think there's some 6-point infantry units that are not really better than 5-point infantry units. They might need some looking at. A 5's better than 4's. Yeah, but not always. And then you move into like the low activation stuff, which 4's better than 3's, etc. That's a different discussion, I think, because 4's are notoriously hard for this game to balance anyway. But we're at the time now where activations is still a good strategy, but activations aren't just winning, right? Let's kind of show where we mean by this. We want like Baratheon, right? Baratheon, the 8 activation in terms of play rates, not played nearly as often. But 7 and 6 have got really comparable win rates. And yes, 6 has got vastly less games. Oops, in Season 4. 6 has even got more games. Right? 6-4-2 in Season 4. Right? Again, vastly lower play rates. But people running 8, 7-4, 7, the 4-3, ironically, is virtually 50%. It's the most standard. Someone's running the 6-3-9. Whew. Boy. Yeah, the thing is, Baratheon's like, the 8 activation's doing quite well. The 6 activations are doing great. The 7 activations, which is by far where they're sat, is doing fine. If anything, this tells you that the overall power level of the game is probably alright. Because it means that activations is a genuine kind of query, but not just more is better, which was always the case. Martell, I can tell you, overwhelmingly it will be 4-3 played, and you look at it and you say, look, comparatively, tiny number of games, right? This is 110 games, 120 games, sorry. And this is, 2,000 games? And the win rate is basically identical. So yeah. There we go. That was my power creep discussion. Anyway, I think there's, I think objectively, yes, units are better. The average unit is better than it was a year ago. But when the average unit was piss poor a year ago, making more things playable, I think, is a positive step. So yeah, let's have a look. Keep reading through. I'm going back to some old comments here because you are very active today, which is good. With Stark's, part of the problem is that any unit that isn't Tully Cavalier is just eating into Tully Cavalier points. Yes. Rebalancing Tully Cavalier will raise the stock of things like Outriders. Yeah, probably. I think they hope Rose Knights like both the movement and the vulnerable quite a bit. Yeah, reasonably. I think Crownland Scouts will work well with Rose Knights because a 3-inch shift is basically a full maneuver for a Rose Knight. So yeah, that's pretty useful. Do you think Red Priestess is overlooked for vulnerable token generation? For yeah, I actually think the Red Priestess is an absolute fine attachment, Kurt. I don't think it's that strong. I think it's fine. And I think people maybe they might think it's better than it is. But I think Red Priestesses are fine. Yeah, like I wouldn't necessarily pick it in my list over something like a Davos 1-pointer. But yeah, I ran Red Priestesses. Where are we at? It's the main strategy with Tyrion Commander. Yeah, with the 3-inch shift crossbowman. Yeah. Definitely, Evan. Add Golden GS Glory Seeker to Champions of the Stag. Yes. Oh no, Crownland Scouts, sorry. Wow. Yeah, Glory Seekers to Champions to Crownland Scouts, and it's going to be fine for Melfuel. Yeah, that is good. It's a bit more palatable than running on your Champions of the Stag because it's the whole thing for 2 points less, and using it as Melfuel that way. Yeah, 100% better. It also allows you to get engaged with R'hllor units more often. I can see Crownland Scout being beneficial for Stannis' side, definitely. Big threat range. Yeah, for Baratheon, 10 inches is a long way. Yeah, King of the Wall is bad. You regret your initial take on him. He is bad. The problem is his attachment. His attachment just doesn't really do anything in the units he can go in. And that sucks. Because his attachment, like, Insight just isn't good. Like, if you look at all the things in the game with Insight, none of them do particularly well. And that's not to say that any of them are terrible. Like, actually, I think if you look at Free Folk, very specifically, where is he? Cave Dweller Alphas, like, they're really not that bad. For a period of time, they were doing all right in this patch, if I remember rightly. They're pretty bad now, but like, yeah, like Insight in general is just not that good ability, and it's not worth paying points to take Insight most of the time. When your commander has Insight, and yeah, sure, Stubborn Tenacity, but what you have is Insight, that just sucks. Even for the cavalry, it just sucks. Also, Vicious is something the base deck gives you anyway. Yeah. Nah, crap. King of the Wall was good when Cots were good. I don't even think he was good when Cots were good. I think King of the Wall was okay when Champions of the Stag were good. You know, we saw at those times the actual best Champions of the Stag builds were Elden builds, not King of the Wall builds, which is hilarious. So yeah, Baratheon now has top tier options for literally every aspect of the game other than Horde. I don't know. I disagree, Evan. I don't agree with that statement. They have the best long range unit in Lightbringers, probably. In terms of like 6-point long range unit, you know, Golden Company Crossbowmen are still very good. King's Men, 7-point infantry unit, as things go, they're on par. I'd probably say they're one of the better ones, but I'd say they're on par with some of the other options. Yeah, they're pretty good. 6 cog cavalry screamers every day are just Crownland Scouts, in my opinion, are worse than screamers. Like, quite a lot more. Yes, they're more a support role, but like screamers just eat Crownland Scouts all day. So yeah, not convinced on 6-point movement or 6 cost cavalry that they're the best. What else? I know Queensmen. People talk about Queensmen. Jesus, no. I think Queensmen are pretty garbage myself. Yeah, I'm not sold. I still think they have one of the worst 5-point units as well, in that Wardens are, as we can see from the rankings, just awful. Just actually awful. But they use Stormcrow Mercs if they need a 5-point unit, and Stormcrow Mercs are pretty good. Dragons with range attacks as data, yeah, it was in reference to 1.6. Power creep in this case is a good thing, because you have such stuff that was so outrageous. The lower powered things need to be crept up. Yeah. And hopefully, Evan, when you said power level of everything, hopefully I referenced that by the time I got to the end of my point, which is you did need the overall power level of everything to probably come up, because there was a lot of dross in the game. Like, we still have, like, we still need the average power level of the game to come up, because the average attachment is shite. And the average attachment is like, that's not just covering like 5 or 10 things, or like, you know, there's 138 units in the game, if I remember rightly. Let's have a look. 138 units, I think. I did the check earlier today. Yeah, 138 units in the game, right? You need the average power level to come up, because of those 138, I bet there's probably only about 50 to 60 that even see play competitively. Attachments, there are how many? 183. I bet you, and there's some here that probably won't even have stats recorded, so they're not appearing on the list. I bet you any money alike that of the 183 attachments in the average like GT style tournament, you probably see less than, and this isn't commander attachments, it's worth noting, you probably see less than 50 of them at like a 60-man event. You know, on an average 60-man event anyway. Yeah, I think the attachments in general need to improve. So therefore, the average power level of the game needs to come up probably. But that's because there's stuff in here that's just like truly garbage. So yeah. Okie where are we at? Present day Baratheons sure have crept up, but still nowhere near the problem items of the past. Yeah, I mean, it's also worth remembering, again, if 1.6 is anything to go by, like 1.6 Baratheons was truly awful, because what happened was, against good players, you just lost. You had virtually no agency, and you literally just lost. And I'm not joking. There was very few decisions. People forget the Ariakas versus Stannis 1000th Lord Commander NRG final from way back in the day, where Stannis 1000th Lord Commander lost the game when he deployed his army, because Ariakas closed off the horses very first thing on round 1, and the bog that, oh no, he didn't. Stannis 1000th Lord Commander had to go through a bog to get to the middle objective, and he took horses, and he still realised he couldn't get there on, I think, Dark Winds, Dark Words, or one of the game modes with objective scoring, and secret missions or something like that. But basically, Clarence's Starks against Stannis 1000th Lord Commander's Baratheons. This is a person who's beaten a lot of other players in the event so far. Clarence worked out before the game began that he could win the game and get to 10 VP before Stannis could stop him. And Clarence decided on the, like, I think it was penultimate or last round of the game, Clarence decided to take a charge on. It actually worked out, and we said, why did you do it? And he said, oh, well, I just wanted to make a bit of a game of it. It was actually a thing where Clarence would have made 0 attacks. Like, actually needed 0 attacks to win the final. He could have beaten Stannis, 1000 Lord Commander, doing 0 wounds. That was old Baratheon problem. Good players made Baratheons unplayable. And bad players lost to Baratheons all the time. Rose Knights being unbeatable was the most common Facebook complaint you'd see. And you saw someone high level play it, and Rose Knights actually did nothing. It was such a dichotomy of the game, and there is so much video evidence out there as well that, you know, this is peak COVID. Remember, like, oh my god, yeah. That, I mean, you talk about power level. That is a really good idea of power level in the game, like the dichotomy between unplayably good, like, or unbeatably good, versus unplayably bad, and the problem that Baratheons in 1.6 had. Oh, it was literally night and day. But yeah, and yeah, you know, we're not to the point where we've got, you know, Elden 6 activations 6/2 Elden Champions of the Stag spam with Glory Seekers and just win. Which I hated. I didn't think it was that good. I never lost to it. Admittedly, I was playing Mance back then, but like, that was legitimately one of the best strategies in terms of ranking. And yet, it just wasn't. I never saw it as being that good. So yeah. Anyway, what were we saying? Warren Brothers, they have a sword, so they have 10 attacks with crit blow and sundering. Yeah, that was old Night's Watch for you. There's a lot of examples and units in the game that haven't been touched that are now just really pretty weak. Yeah, that's true. That's not actually entirely true. Actually, Evan. There aren't that many units in the game that have received no changes and are still weak. What's actually interesting is they've received changes, and the changes haven't helped them. That's actually what the most like damning stuff is. You can't go to the bottom, right? Because Reavers got changed when Greyjoys got changed. Berserkers just got changed. Swordmasters, they've been largely unchanged for some time. Yeah. Swordmasters are like one of the units that probably has gone unchanged the most. Wardens, unchanged for a long time. I'm not going to talk about Golden Company Swordsmen. We've been there. Ground Men, just changed. Clegane's Mountain Men, just changed. Red Cloaks, they got changed by changing the rules. Or clarifying the rules. Darkstar Retinue haven't been out long enough. Pikemen, unchanged. Guardsmen, unchanged since the Lannister Supremacy change. So yeah. Bowmen just changed. Giants, not going to consider Giants. Can't be fucked. Veterans, changed. Got your game precision. Outriders, changed. Changed the Swift Retreat for Swift Repo. Loyalists, just reinvented. Swarm Brothers, unchanged. Swarm Brothers is one of the probably the few on the list of infantry units that's completely unchanged. And acts as a metric for 7-point units. Swarm Brothers were good and were pinnacle 7-point unit. Swarm Brothers have fallen off with the rise of Hunters. They've fallen off with the way the game is played, actually, rather than being a pinnacle 7-point unit. Is that the game is played differently to when Swarm Brothers were obscenely strong. If anyone remembers 1.4, when Swarm Brothers were like 5 points and they used to run around with crit blow and sundering, and someone ran an event, they just ran John and like 5 units of Swarm Brothers and kicked the living shit out of everyone because they were just objectively broken. Way back when they were released, they got changed to 6 points in 1.4, 1.5 and 1.6, and then changed to 7 points, obviously, in 2021 with a complete change of keywords. Yeah, the thing, Mikkel says Swarm Brothers suck now. They don't. They don't suck that badly. It's just a comparative cost effectiveness plus what they're trying to do. Swarm Brothers are still fine at absolutely cleaving through Free Folk, right? They still beat Free Folk to death, which is what they always used to do. What the big difference is that that's not a viable game plan. They are melee only, which has always been a weakness. One of the biggest weaknesses of melee only units in the last few patches has been Free Folk and the way the game plays. Melee only infantry is abusably slow because cavalry exists. And what they offer as a complete package synergizes really well. It just isn't how you can leverage a win from a game. Like I do think 754 is pretty harsh for Swarm Brothers. They could easily go back to 765 now that they've had a load of ways to reduce extra dice removed. But no one remembers Swarm Brothers with Watch Captains, charging into stuff and obliterating it. Like, actually just obliterating people left, right, and centre. And they are under the efficiency curve now. And part of that is with the deck changes. It's worth noting, when we consider Night's Watch, they've had a massive deck rework. Like, a massive deck rework. So now the unit on its own doesn't function that well because the deck doesn't support it. It wasn't supporting it well in Season 3, and they ended up being a weak unit in Season 3 because GCS exists, and GCS will obviously overcurve. And now it's not supporting it in Season 4 because the deck just doesn't help Swarm Brothers do what they want to do. If you don't remember 2021 Swarm Brothers, you used to just kill people with them. And the only reason you didn't see more Swarm Brothers is because Crossbowmen existed. Like, Swarm Brothers absolutely ripped the shit out of things. But yeah. But where are we at? Starsworn Swords, they've gone basically unchanged since the Stark changes back at Season 1. The original Stark changes that saw Season 1, they had the old take wounds to do more things removed, and they just had native crit blow given back. Thornwatch have been changed multiple times. Jorah, just been changed. Bruisers have always been crap, and they've been changed. Bowman changed. Brazen Beasts only just released. I'm not going to go through every unit, but I'm starting at the bottom, and like, a lot of these things have changed. Is actually the point, right? A lot of these things have changed. And in fact, there's very few things that haven't changed. If anything, Bloody Mama Skirmishes going up to movement 6 is a classic change, but like, they're still just crap. They fulfill a role that ultimately just doesn't work very well. Zorse Riders have not been changed massively for 2 seasons. Got reworked, nice combo piece. You got to look at the middle, the stuff that perhaps just doesn't see that much play potentially. And even then, there's a lot of stuff here that I see played relatively decently. I'd have to look through the overall play rates of everything in the game. But it says a lot, right? It says a lot. Where the 0 mark is at the 64th, 63rd unit. So, about half the units. Half the units are positive. Just under half the units are positive. Just over half the units are negative. And I know this is just like the power rankings, and plus power rankings with units is a bit different. It's not zero sum. So you can't just add all these numbers together and go, oh, look, it equals 0, because it doesn't. At least it didn't when I last spoke to Carlo about it. But yeah, like, some of the change stuff, Raiders only nerfed, still fine. They're not up here at the plus 500 or whatever they were. Stormgrey Mercs, morale buff. They're now near the top, back where they were back in 1.6 times. Screamers are the second best unit in the game. What? Let's go. Oh, redemption. I'm so glad. I didn't even notice that. That's just me. I said Screamers were really, really good. And yeah, I'm really glad they're up there. That's got me happy. Also, has Rhaegal overtaken Drogon as the best combat unit? Oh, he has. What a boss. These are just personal things for Targs. But yeah, so yeah. What else people saying? I would leave as they are, but make them 6 points. Yeah, you could probably make Night's Watch Crossbowmen 6 points. I do think it's a bit harsh, and Night's Watch Crossbowmen could probably move down to 6 points, but you might. The order's not nearly as good as it used to be. Maybe just make them comparative to the other 6 point options in the game. 6 point infantry units, 6 point ranged units, and the sad thing I will mention when I say that is that if we're just moving into the kind of like every faction has a 6 point ranged unit, every faction has a this, that, you know what I mean, it does take a lot of the flavor of the game away. So yeah, I don't know. Sworn Brothers need crit blow back. No, crit blow is not the answer to making things good. Just makes the game more swingy, not better. I don't think. Personally, I don't like crit blow being on things more. I don't think that's a good thing. They could just have attack profile increase. Okay, that's fine. Have 8 dice. What's wrong with infantry having 8 dice? I don't think there is anything wrong with 8 dice. Probably not. Rather than maybe you want crit blow. I don't know. Depends what you want. Depends what you're trying to go for. 764 with a new minor ability like go down fighting. Yeah, the lack of a second ability on outside of Sundering and martial training now probably puts them a little bit behind the curve. Like barely. Like it's worth noting that the Sworn Brothers are still played just about. But there's a lot of other 7 point infantry only units that are not doing well. Swordmasters aren't doing well. Golden Company Swordsmen aren't doing well. Darkstar Retinue are not doing well. Unsullied Pikemen are not doing well. Veterans aren't doing well. Sworn Brothers aren't doing well. The next one, 7 point infantry only. Crownland Bog Devils. Like 7 point melee only infantry just isn't that good unless it has direct support or ways to make it relevant. You know, if we go to the top, Royal Guard, I imagine, are pretty up. Yeah, Royal Guard are like barely positive. They're barely positive in a faction that's had a pretty good season. So there's still just better things to spend 7 points on than Royal Guard, which is Sun Skirmishers. It's all about relative cost effectiveness. You know, 7 point melee infantry unit in Night's Watch. What are you going to pick? Oh, Jesus, is the best Night's Watch unit the Stone Thrower? Oh, ugh. No, it's not. Rage of Vanguard. Oh, thank fuck. Oh no, it is a Stone Thrower. That pisses me off. But yeah, Ranger Vanguard in it. You know, a good unit at 7. I'm guessing Shadow Tower Spearmen are up here. Trackers are there. Shadow Tower Spearmen. Conscript. Cold Hands. Builder Scorpion Co. Oh, don't tell me Shadow. Oh god, they're negative. They're a perfectly good unit. But Vanguard for 7 are just better because they have a movement value and they're cavalry. Which is the other problem. Cavalry is free on some units in cost comparison, and the cavalry rule is incredibly strong. Like, is insanely strong. So making it cost less than 1 point in some cases is questionable design philosophy. That's always been the issue, is that cavalry is, generally speaking, much better than infantry. Certainly since, like, back in the 2021 season 1 kind of time period. Where stones? Yeah. Not Switch OP. Yeah, that's a classic. Too much War Machines for my taste. Is also Stock Surge. Yeah. Where stones? Telecavalier broke 200. Yeah, they did. Telecavalier are on the up. Take that with what you will. I think they've been higher. Doesn't have the graph for these, but yeah. Telecavaliers, they're not even like their win rate isn't even that high. February they did well, but like the win rate isn't even that high. They just are a good unit. What we got? No, 169, 139. Did I say 169 originally, Evan? It's 139 units. Or is 138? I can't remember now. Yeah, so not 139. 169, sorry. Lancer Guards need morale buff too. Lancer Guards will need a lot of love. Mostly. Well, the problem is Lancer Supremacy as an order is actually incredibly effective. In a way that it shouldn't be. And again, it's that it's an effect, like Supremacy is an incredibly powerful ability that is only relevant if your opponent plays into it. So if you make the unit relevant by enabling the unit in the way that we saw Kevin enabled, the way we see Steer enabled in Thens, like you can very quickly suddenly have units that are like borderline problematic. But yeah, a 1 morale buff to Lancer Guardsman is probably not unreasonable. Moving to a 3+, 6+. 3+, 7+ is just, ooh, you just die to those checks. Screamers are better than Cots for 2 less points. No, Kurt. That's not true. They're not factually better than... No. They are a higher ranking, so point effectiveness at 6 points in faction means they're better. What rankings mean. They are not a better unit than Champions of the Stag at 2 less points. They are a different unit. They do different things. Champions of the Stag are not charging cavalry. They are grind cavalry. They always have been grind cavalry. Grinding in this game is typically not good. So it's not about Champions of the Stag being bad. They are designed around a theory that is bad. If you get into the grind with Champions of the Stag, they are fine. They are absolutely one of the best units at grinding. It just so happens that that isn't the way people play. That's obvious if you look at in the 8-point slot in Baratheon, Champions are the highest. I know you haven't got many 8-point options, but they're still relatively popular. They're relatively positive. Yeah. Screamers are probably better than Champions of the Stag in the way the game plays. Yes. But they're not just de facto a better unit. That's just not true. Like, I think they're more point effective. I think they are probably going to win more games. But Screamers are not beating Champions of the Stag in a one-on-one fight. Like, that's just not happening. Right? So yeah. No. Refuse. Refuse that statement. Tell morale 6 and buff Winterfell Guards. Oh god, no. I don't want to see Winterfell Guards buffed anymore. They're already pretty good at one point. Oh, Winterfell Guards is in the infantry. Yeah. Maybe. It's wild that Screamer's going from meh to ridiculous was the simple addition of Sundering. It shows how powerful the keyword is in the faction. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. 2 keywords that synergize. They give vulnerable and they have Sundering. We just described Night's Watch Sworn Brothers. 2 keywords that synergize really well. They even get re-rolls, which is why you take Khaleesi 4-point NCU. Screamers are the same as Sworn Brothers. The difference is they're a point less. Defensively, only 1 armor difference. And they have a cav move. Like, cavalry in this game is underrated. Undervalued. The cavalry move is undervalued. Like, That's what I'm saying. Like Sworn Brothers are actually fine. It's just that cavalry in this game is typically undercosted. Like, and it really obviously is undercosted. Like, if you look at the top of these lists, the top 3 units in the game are cavalry. These 2 are cheap, attachment enabling infantry. And this is basically an all-rounder. Like, it's like the most versatile unit probably in the game right now. This is a unit of cavalry. This is, I mean, dare I say it, this is the spam effect wound mechanic. This is the win condition to some extent of free folk. And then you end up with the first actual melee infantry unit that its job is to kill things in melee. Like, all of the rest, their job is either to be objective holders, to do wounds from a distance, or they're cavalry. Like, the only good infantry, and this is the top 10, there's only one. Even pyros are like a support piece because they can be ranged, right? Thens are your next, basically, dedicated infantry unit. And they're 5 points. So they're not even like a good dedicated one. This is like your kind of like, in other factions, your objective holding trash. Right? Stoneshore Pillagers, the next infantry only unit. Infantry melee only unit at 5, and it's a support piece. The next melee only infantry is Trappers. And melee only infantry Trappers, they're a support piece. Eddard's Honor Guard, 22 at plus 27, is the first, outside of King's Men, melee only, no reductions, no nothing, no support, just it is a stat block. This is the first stat block after King's Men. Like, and Champions of the Stag, in terms of rating, are equivalent. So, like, yeah, I really, I think stat blocks are just not good. And the problem with melee infantry unit is they fulfill the stat block role more than nearly any other faction. Crownland Scouts are not stat blocks. Crownland Scouts are cavalry, and they're good because they're cavalry. Right? It's as simple as that. Yeah. Anyway, I'll not go down that route. Fight me, Mickey, says Kurt. Yeah, I know. I will definitely fight you, Kurt. If I face a list with 3 melee infantry and 1 cav or solo, I rejoice. Exactly. Thomas is right. That kind of stuff is just so much better to face. No, the actual reason I complain about crit blow, Evan, is the average result. The average result crit blow gives is not that much higher, but it just makes the game very swingy with certain mechanics. Like, and I know it shouldn't happen that often, but how many times do people weaken a crit blow unit? And even sometimes they just weaken, like, not even the whole attack or only the 6s and something like that. And it still ends up with, like, the same number of 6s. Or people weaken, like a newbie will weaken an attack, and then the crit blow mean they generate more hits from the weaken token. Like, those kind of game mechanics don't feel good for players. And that's not to say they are good. I don't actually think they're that good. Like, I don't think crit blow's that amazing, except for the fact it allows you to spike damage, which is what some players want. Yeah, I generally think it makes people feel not good. That doesn't mean it's too powerful, though, or broken. Just, yeah. We used to have a lot more spikiness in the game, like a lot more. And it was a good change to remove some of the spikiness. What we actually need is we need tactics cards to be more powerful across the board. Like, your deck and your cards should feel powerful. And Carlo, Carlo's biggest complaints is there's a lot of cards in the game that don't feel powerful. So, you know. That's interesting. So Evan's saying at 25-person event yesterday who did not have a single Night's Watch player. Yeah. Yeah, people don't want to play Night's Watch. But it's because they got nerfed, right? It's really important to know people's perception of something and the actual state of something are two different things. People do not play stuff that got nerfed. Right? We've seen this before in the game's history. If you phrase something like a nerf, its play rate goes down. And yes, if the nerf is big enough, the play rate plummets. And this was obvious. Like, do people forget? And you can't really see the stats for it anymore. Do people not remember the Golden Company Swordsman change? Where in Season 3, they were being picked a huge amount of the time. Like, a huge amount of the time in Season 3, right? And then they said, oh, we've nerfed Golden Company Swordsman towards the end of Season 3. And the 2 months, 3 months that followed, their pick rate went down. In some cases, like, it was like nearly half. I did look at the stats back then in an episode. I'll see if I can find the video footage. But they dropped. All the pick rates dropped. And yet the win rate went up. And every good player was saying, yeah, Golden Company Swordsman got improved. The order is actually better. This isn't a nerf. Like, the way you phrase things affects pick rate massively. And Night's Watch got massively nerfed. And if it's phrased that way, people will deviate away from it. It's not about people picking strong stuff as well. It's people... The other thing, which I do agree with you, Evan, people pick things that aren't fun to play. And Night's Watch right now is not really that fun. That's not to say it can't be fun. It can't be fun. I think Night's Watch can be fun. But I don't look at Night's Watch and think it's fun. Same with Lannisters, right? I look at Lannisters and I'm like, God, Lannisters is just not fun to play the game with right now. It's not about power level. It's just that, like, they do just one thing, basically. And then they can kind of do some other stuff, but it's just not as good as the one thing. And yeah, like, factions which are just boring to play and to build lists for just don't excite me as a player and haven't excited most people as a players. Criticism of Free Folk is that, yes, they can be very strong, but a lot of people simply don't want to play them because it's just Horde, isn't it? Even when it could be proved that they weren't Horde, people still said, oh, but it's Horde, isn't it? And so, like, I agree, you don't want no factions represented. But, like, in our event in the UK over here at the Northern GT, we had significant number of factions not represented. It's not that unlikely in, like, a 24, 25-man event to have factions not represented, which is insane, by the way. It feels like they should all be represented in that size. But, like, we had 3 factions not represented, if I remember rightly. Okay, one of them's neutral. We don't think we had a Lannister at all. Lannister's been the most popular faction in the UK for years. So, yeah. I don't think it's a surprise to not have a Night's Watch player. It's sad. I'm not going to dispute that. It's definitely sad. And it definitely plays into the rhetoric which we know, which is Night's Watch aren't fun, or not particularly fun. They're not particularly inspiring, and they have received nerfs. Completely agree with all of that, and I think that's what plays into the lack of attendance of them. That being said, it's not overly surprising that there was no players of Night's Watch. So yeah. Benjen is fun. I agree. I completely agree with you, Evan. Completely. I really enjoy playing Benjen Commander. Benjen Commander in Night's Watch is fun, and I like him. And I think he makes some good lists. So, yeah. You also didn't have a single Greyjoy player. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me. People need to realise that Night's Watch shifted style, and they're not just murder hobos. They're grindy objective holders. Yeah, that's generally true. I would agree there. Shadow Tower Spearmen are an absolute pain in the arse to try and remove from the board. Especially, and Donnell, you know, let's just... Right now, if I was going to say a faction... There's 2 things in this game, right? And I say there's a lot about Lannister. I feel Lannister's hopes and dreams ride, although Pyros have been doing quite well recently, I think Lannister's hopes and dreams rides almost entirely on Tywin 6-pointer and Knights of Castle Rock. You take those things away, and Lannisters just feel like sadness, right? I think if you took Donnell NCU away from Night's Watch and maybe he's Ranger Vanguard, they'd feel pretty fucking sad. And yeah, those two factions in general, I just think rely on some quite key components most of the time. At least in my opinion. Might not be entirely right, and I might not back it up with any stats, but you know, that's how I feel about it. Howard says, as a Lannister player, I only want about half my deck in any given game. Yeah. Yeah, you only about half your deck, and we focused on talking about like the bad parts of the balance right now, in terms of like the way it feels, but this is really where one of the biggest things is that you want the base decks to feel powerful and to feel relevant the whole time. Yes, not every card is going to be super powerful in every matchup and in every game state, but you want to feel like your cards do something. And there are a lot of cards in the game right now which have minor improvement effects to no discernible real impact on the game. And those kind of cards are a problem, because the card play in 1.6, which was this card does this really powerful thing, was probably too good. Because the cards and the base decks, you know, Swift Advance, if anyone remembers Swift Advance, infantry activates, gets to make a free maneuver, like cavalry. You know, Swift Advance decks were just pretty much objectively better than other decks from other units and other lists. But apart from that, very, you know, we had explosive cards everywhere. You know, Stag's Resilience, heal D3+1, also deal that as wounds. 8 wound swing. What the hell? It's what it could be. You know, these kind of things matter, and powerful things happening from hand is fine. The power level of the stuff from hand is significantly lower than it's been previously. We've seen things like auto 6 charges and stuff like that come into the game, but like still nowhere near the absolute devastation it was. That being said, the cards are probably in an alright spot. The base decks are clearly fairly well balanced. So, yeah, that would be where, if I was talking ideal world here, that would be what I would do. And, you know, they talk about an attachment commander change, which is going to be very big. Attachments and commanders need to be amended, the values of those attachments and the commander attachments. Meta slaves not honouring their vows. Yeah, exactly, Thomas. People who played Night's Watch for years suddenly not using them because they're weaker. Classic. Night's Watch saying Grindstone doesn't work because Barrows and Greyjoys drone better. They drone differently. I think Night's Watch can still do it. Well, he's getting re. I always play as if I have no base deck. That's bad. You do have a base deck. Your base deck isn't that bad. Daniel doing some advertising in chat. I'm watching you, Daniel. It's fine. I was actually going to mention it, so it's okay. I was talking with Daniel earlier today, which is something I will briefly mention here. If we can get it going, I've got an idea. Tywin feels a bit like old Corrin. Yeah, genuinely unfun to play against, and not what I can do about it. Yeah, and yet I will say this, right? Tywin is a really good example of what I would consider an almost problematic design, in that Tywin is good, and that he is imperative. He's not particularly fun. While having said all of that, Tywin isn't actually good enough. Like, his power, his effect overall is not enough to like win games with regularity. It's not the Corrin in terms of like actual power. And that's crazy. It's crazy to have a thing that it's like the old Mel effect, right? Mel wasn't powerful at winning games, but people hated playing against Mel because it was unfun. Tywin is unfun, and yet if you actually look at his win rate of 54%, to be fair, it's a lot better than that. Let's have a look at where are we at with commanders. Lannister commanders. Tyrion will load up Gregor as well. Yeah, so Tyrion's win rate's 48%. That's abysmal. Holy shit. Okay. Gregor's season 4. Maybe he is good enough. I lied to you all. Live. On screen. Kevin's still at the highest win rate. You've got to be kidding me. Yeah, he actually does. No way. No way. Okay, Jockin's doing pretty well. And Joffrey's not actually doing terribly. Kevin actually might have the best win rate in terms of season 4. To be fair, Joffrey's doing pretty well. That's incredibly depressing. But yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. Tywin is good enough to just win the game for Lannister players. I mean, yeah. It's in a third of lists as well. Well, I'm wrong. Apologise. I don't think he's that good though. Like, I think he's good, but like, I don't think he's oppressively strong to the point where he needs nerfing. That's the thing with Tywin. He's unfun, but I don't think he needs nerfing. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like Martell's the best example of that inner faction balance. Maybe Baratheons now as well. Yeah, Martell's, Baratheons. I think Free Folk have got some okay balance to a point now. I think Boltons are actually fairly well balanced internally. It's not saying much. Targs are quite well balanced internally. I don't think Swordmasters and Pikemen are that far off the mark at all. I think Pit Fighters suck, to be honest. We have a discussion around those recently, but yeah, like on the overall kind of thing, I would say that Targs have got some decent like unit balance. Starks have got some wild unit balance. The same problem that Targs have got. Like, some stuff is just objectively very, very good. Like Cavaliers. And some stuff is just objectively crap. And why would you ever include it in a list? It just doesn't do anything. Lannisters have got a similar issue, but with, I think, more stuff being like, this is just not very good. As Mikkel found out, Mikkel literally found out when he used a unit of Clegane's Mountain's men, and they lost him. Like, they actually lost him the game. In a game that he was probably going to win otherwise. And then he ran Mountain's Men, and they failed dramatically to do what they needed to do, and he lost because of it. And it was embarrassing to see the unit basically given all the chances it needed to be successful. It just didn't materialize. Yeah. All right then. Okay. The other thing that I was going to mention, which was, this is old news for those of you who don't remember this news. This was really, really, really old news from say really old news. It's not that old, but our friends. I'm trying to find the link now. Over at Game. Who's got the. Oh dear God, where's the article? Yeah. Forgefire. Didn't cover this. This is back in May. Forgefire has the full tactics cards sets available to print for every faction. This is not the most recent updates. This is the current tactics card packs. This is what has been I've been asked for and been needed for the game for a long time. I know we talk about like printing them out at home and doing this and other. The point being is telling a new player, oh, you need to print out a load of cards yourself to play the game with the most recent updates. We no longer have to do. We can direct them to a product they can purchase, at least in the US, right? EU shipping is also available. This is a good thing. I know that people might not like this. I know I've seen some people complain and say, well, it's ridiculous, etc. Or you just print them yourself. We're used to that. As a new player, being able to purchase professionally created products that bring your current rules directly up to date is a good thing. Right? It's objectively good. This is a positive move. I don't have any complaints. This is what we've wanted. It's what's been required. Good. Massive win. I don't see why anyone would complain about this. Yes, it might not be for you as a more seasoned player, but this is a positive thing. This is another thing that people may have slept under. This was only last Monday when this was announced. There we go. I wonder, they've started doing releases on Mondays. I wonder. CMON news on a Monday. No, coincidence. I can't believe that for any minute is not coincidence. But if it isn't coincidence, and anyone at CMON is watching or getting any feedback, well done. CMON news on a Monday. Anyway, let's have a look what people are saying. We actually never had that many Night's Watch players here, but the fact that the few that remained have been turned off by the changes, yeah. Yeah, it's true. People who used to play them will get switched off. It's fine. Strip away all no, Thomas. The strip away the unit loses all abilities effect is very harsh for Tywin. I think that's, in some ways, I think that's unique and could exist in the game. I think that element is fine. It just, the problem with the Tywin thing is not that Tywin's like that strong. It's just usually this is predicated with like I'm gonna Tywin, put double token on you and charge you, and I've also neutered your one thing that can fight back when I kill your other thing. And it creates a feel bad moment because basically it's a point in the game which you can see coming where they just do this, and if they kill you, it's probably just game over. And if they don't kill you, it's probably just game over. But for the Lannister player, like it's like a gambit basically. It's like, this better work. And I don't believe for any minute that that is really just how simple it is. Mistakes and other things make up the games. But that being such a big part of every game that plays out against Lannisters at the moment is just kind of like, it's headache inducing. Because it's like, it's just the same thing you're gonna do. It's frustrating to play against. Even if it's not that strong. Because it's boring. That's actually the other thing. It's a boring game plan. In my opinion, anyway. Mikkel, that 1300 ELO player. I know, right? Rip Mikkel. He's not that low. Where is Mikkel at the moment? I know he's lost a few games recently. He's 1980, which is, still very respectable. But means the lowest he's been in what? Lowest he's, well, not quite the lowest. He's technically been lower, I think. But this is the lowest period he's been in since his 300th game. So that's not going to work. That really isn't going to work. year, 2022, give or take. um, yeah, that's pretty sad. Sorry to see. I mean, he's trying some new stuff out. He's experimenting with the game, which is absolutely fine. Which is what you want from players ultimately. And people who play and experiment are getting more out of the game than people like me who are not playing enough and not experimenting enough, and mental things or whatever out of the way. What he's doing is good. He will go down and he will come back up because he'll be a better player for it. So yeah, I've got no problems with it. But it is odd to see him drop. Not that low. He's still very highly rated. But I mean, this is the lowest he's been since 2022. So yeah, we'll see him bounce back. Not playing Greyjoys at the moment, you'll notice, or not as often anyway. But yeah, that's that is that. Where are we at? Still combines for 2. Yeah. I think make Tywin 5 changes triggered to the same as current predictable maneuvers and change the loss of abilities for only that turn. Only 1 turn loss of abilities is just saying kill this unit. I don't think that's that good. There's a big reduction. Changing the trigger timing is also massive. I even timing for that many points, Tristan, is really not very good. I wouldn't. Yeah. 4 points. I don't think that would be worse than. Dang, you missed 2 hours. You did, Carl. Go back and watch 2 hours of footage. Crones Brandon got my season 4 tile cards and was really impressed by the quality and speed by which I received them. Great addition for the game. Brilliant, Brandon. That's really good to see and hear. Varys, Shay, Baelish, Roose, Kyburn are all better at the very least. Sparrow and Tom. Yeah, better than the proposed Tywin. Say it depends on the list. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Realms of Battle is still got loads of sign-ups. I was surprised here. It's not to say that it hasn't got sign-ups. So in case you ever need to do this, you just take that and divide it by 3 because that'll tell you how many players have signed up. We've only got 20 people who've made it through the full sign-up process. 20 times 3 is 60. So there's 210 left. So there are 70 people on the waiting list currently. Which is still like a lot of people. Not saying it's not a lot of people on the waiting list, but it's 70 people still on the waiting list, and 20 people there. That's only 90 spaces, and they are looking for a size of 300-ish players or whatever. I can't remember how many size they went for, but this is selling out a lot slower than it did previously, which I think is very interesting. I'd love to know why the apparent spaces are slower. But Realms of Battle Europe, hosted by War Factory, put on by War Factory and Simon in Poland next year, or this year, sorry, in November in Warsaw. So, or just outside Warsaw. So watch out for that. See. Not with that attitude. What actually? It's hard to tell when. Yeah. Anyway, right. We've also got, as Daniel was saying, we have not the attached. Control F is my favorite thing with this thing. We've got the Hits and Crits League that they're starting up. That's the DWG guys playing it. I might see if I can go down to that. I'll see if they'll let me. Sorry, I just noticed an event that I'm might get to go to. Right, community online tournament. Here we go. So, this community online tournament hosted by Larks officially, but the Hits and Crits team. They are putting on an league as per usual, a TTS system, up to 32 players because it was sold out within like a day. I say sold out, but like it was full within a day. There's only 4 players. Only 4, rounds. And there may be a final between the 2 top players at the end of round 4. There will be a 5th round for 2 players. Online TTS league, system, tournament, whatever you want to call it. And I believe you get, for every member of the team you beat, you get some kind of prize. So watch out for that. Play the event if you want to play it. There's only a few spots left, so check it out. I'll be checking in on it, see who ends up beating some of the team. I'm not going to enter. I did think about it, but I'm not going to enter. Mostly because TTS events are just not my thing at the moment. But yeah, I very nearly wanted to enter. Very, very nearly. Except then I remembered about scheduling games on TTS when I've got things on and when I don't want to play games on TTS. So that was a big no. But yeah, no, check it out. It'd be really awesome, I'm sure. And we'll see if there's any cool stories that come off the back of it. Yeah, so we've got Beer Keeps a Man Alive this weekend in Germany. The Hegemalalia tournament is starting up this weekend. This is the regular event happening in Poland now every year by the Hegemalalia team. Polish and German attendees this year for the Hits and Crits guys going along to that, including Daniel, among others. And yeah, Team Pivnica are obviously big turnout to this event. It's their main one that they go to if there's no Team Pivnica and the guys in that. So that will be really cool, I'm sure. Good luck to Larks, obviously, going there. I think Swavex playing, I think. Oh, yeah, he is. Swavex playing. So good luck, Swav, and Daniel. 2 friends. Come get you, Thomas. I would. Think about it. Got some other stuff going on though. Battle of Three Swords event down for the Chelmsford Bunker guys. Grant's moved the Chelmsford, what was the old Chelmsford Bunker monthly tournament. The kind of desire for it fell off a little bit. So they stopped doing it and they stopped running it kind of every 3 months. And they sell out every time now. So well done, Chelmsford. Well done, Grant. Talking to Grant in great detail the other day. So yeah, I hope that goes awesomely well this weekend, Grant and the Chelmsford lot. An event in Gdansk, Poland this weekend. An event, the Overclock. So this is one of the Overclock series is one of Lockerbie's events. He's got 11 players by the looks of it. I haven't heard from Lockerbie in a while. I can see that Thomas is going, as well as Ilya, friends of us. So yeah, I hope that goes well. Thomas, hope you enjoy. And it's Lockerbie, man. Lockerbie's great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. La Pargas Grand Tournament in Finland. Just 4 people. Fair enough. We've got an event in Russia as well this weekend. An event in Ender's Game, their June tournament. Ender's Game running regular monthly events. Still good to see. Event in Freiburg in Switzerland. Only 4 players, but that'll be the small Switzerland group playing their games. An event at Kingdom Games in Madrid, Spain this weekend as well. How's this one looking? No one signed up. Sadness. Russia, another event there. The DMG Showdown this weekend, which I might have Sunday free, so I might see if I can even just go down to say hello. If not, play. But I'll see what they think. An event in Manresa, España. Ooh, this is new. Isn't it? I've never heard of a community in Manresa outside of Barcelona. Cool. Awesome. New Spanish community, or certainly a new area of Spain I've not seen playing the game. Another event in that's next weekend. Whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 events happening this weekend. I really hope those attendees at the events absolutely enjoy themselves as well. There's a bounty on your head in the Lockerbie tournament. That's good. I know Lockerbie loves his stuff like that. Oh, that was really weird. Sometimes you can't hear me when I turn away. That was really stupid. Or it's just being very slow. Yeah, it's just being incredibly slow on the pickup and telling me what you can hear and what you can't hear. All right then. So, one last thing. I'm gonna be, hopefully, if you didn't see the team reveal on Hits and Crits, they did a cool thing. Hoping to bring some more content around competitive play. Float some ideas out there, and if so, there'll be a combination of live and recorded content coming to your screens soon around competitive play, how to think about different factions, thinking about certain ways of building lists, etc., etc. I hope it's going to be really fun. I hope it gives it's a bit of a different take on the game as well. This will be how you've never seen the game played like this, is the theory. It's not at all how tournaments work, but hopefully gives you something different and gives you a really good insight into the way top players play and think across all elements of the game, but in a very real setting. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I'm working with Daniel on it, and yeah. I've got an idea. I hope it's fun. Right. With that, guys, I will catch you next time. I don't know if it'll be next week or it might be a few weeks. I don't know. I don't know how often I'm going to do episodes. We will see. But you have an absolutely fantastic time this weekend. If I don't see you next week, have a great time next weekend. And I hope everything goes well. And I'll catch you later on.